Hello everyone, my name is Enrique Cardona and welcome to another review. In this case, we are going to review the third episode of the season 4 of Daredevil, aka Daredevil Born Again. Now, the episode is called The Hollow of His Hand. This is the third episode of this season, and as per usual, we're going to talk about spoilers. So, if you haven't seen the episode, this the Hollow of His Hand, or any of the episodes previously, then I highly recommend you stop the video here and watch the episodes in chronological order, as well as watching the previous review that I did in regards to the first episodes. Now, before we start talking about the episode, we need to address a couple of things that I probably didn't get the first time. In this case, the Vanessa and Wilson Fisk problems. I added that they were going to therapy with Heather Grant, and basically they were discussing about their issues. But I failed to mention last time that Vanessa apparently cheated on Wilson with another guy, and apparently whoever this guy, the guy who Vanessa cheated with, paid the price because we see the bruises of the knuckles on Wilson's fist, and that's just weird. No, no, not weird. It's hard because God, I think things are not the same as they used to be back in the in the 3 seasons that we saw on Daredevil. So things had changed. Another thing that I need to mention is the reaction upon people reacting to Foggy's death, how they all seem to be very sad, very uh, in denial, be put in denial, basically, and not being able to process it. People think that this is a terrible idea, killing off Foggy. And look, as I mentioned before in the video, I like Foggy a lot, but if you're going to start the show in a bold new direction, you have to do it with a bang. You cannot just do the same tricks and pretend that everybody is alive. You have to take a risk, and this is the big risk that they needed to put. Now, somebody had mentioned in past videos that maybe Foggy Nelson is still alive because of a number that appears in the first episode, 486, if I'm not mistaken. It's based on the number of a comic called The Secret Life of Foggy Nelson, which potentially could mean that he's still alive. It also makes sure that the fact that there are rumors, well, not rumors, that there are information and news about Eldon Henson coming back as Foggy Nelson in season 2, as well as Deborah Ann Wolf as Karen Page, which we also going to see in this season in later episodes. But we don't know what and what capacity after, well, basically seeing Karen living to live a life in San Francisco. So yeah, basically we have to wait and see. But for that, with all that being said, we need to talk about this third episode and see what happens. So, if you remember from the last video, I talked about the character Hector Ayala, played by Kamar de los Rios. So, this is actually going to be his final episode in which he appears because, unfortunately, like I said, the actor Kamar de los Reyes passed away from cancer in 2023. And basically, they had to do a lot of reshoots and figure out the story without the white tiger. So I'm going to address what happens in this episode. So the episode starts with Matt talking to Hector on a jail cell, talking about he wanting to go back to his land, to Puerto Rico, talking about the beach, talking about how he misses it, how he misses his family, and how he wishes to go back once the trial is over and he can be declared innocent. So, with that being said, the episode starts beautifully with the intro. We see that the trial has begun. Everybody in the trial has been put, all the officers, Hector's wife, as well as Kristen. As far as Cherry, he is protecting the witness that we saw in the second episode, in this case, Nikki Torres, which is one of the guys that the corrupted police officers were beating up at the subway station. And he becomes the priority for Matt's case in order to prevent him from dying and potentially compromising the situation, the trial of Hector Ayala. So basically, Cherry, I love Cherry, by the way. He really is a very loyal guy, and it's good that he's in the good side of the law, even though he's retired from the police force. So that's good to know, and it's good to see. We also continue to see the episode in which Wilson and Vanessa are basically getting more distant by the hour. Basically, if you saw the scene with them eating in a table, distant from each other, it's really symbolizing how far away are from each other, not just from physically, but also how things have changed for them. It's not the same as they used to be before. As Vanessa loyally following Wilson at every move, and with Wilson Fisk being mayor, you would figure that things would be easier for him between him and Vanessa, but no, it's getting harder and harder. And as things progress, we see that the therapy is not helping matters. So yeah, the whatever chemistry they have back on the first three seasons of Daredevil is changing a lot in this season. So yeah, I figure that that is Vanessa who wants Wilson to go back to his criminal ways, because one of the things that Vanessa that she liked about Wilson is that he actually allowed himself to be more open to her, and Vanessa was willing to go to the trial of crime and mafias. Basically, she's becoming Wilson Fisk, or the new Kingpin, and she wants Wilson to go back to that time. Although I might be wrong. Maybe she just couldn't love him anymore. I mean, after all, he went to jail multiple times. He got shot in the face by Maya, and he was put in a coma. I mean, how long do you think a woman like Vanessa will wait, especially since she doesn't have any children? And all she has right now is the crime organization, which she's running on behalf of Wilson. And Wilson is not even willing to do that crime ever again, to go back to being the Kingpin, even though he's still aching for the opportunity to be the Kingpin again. So yeah, things are getting complicated in the Fisk family. So it's gonna take a lot, to say the least, to see what happens and how it all unfolds. So the trial starts to take place, and Matt, as well as another prosecutor called Benjamin Hunchberg, played by John Benjamin Hickey, are basically asking questions to the corrupt police officer, trying to get across what's going on. Meanwhile, we see Cherry trying to protect Nikki Torres into the trial. So he manages to put Nikki into the trial. Matt starts to asking questions, but then all of a suddenly Nikki Torres starts to deny that Hector saved him from the two corrupted cops, and tries to lie, and he starts lying. Basically, it starts to complicate things for Matt as well as for Kristen, since they are trying to defend Hector, and now their key witness starts to lie. And the reason why, we don't know, but chances are he probably is scared out of his mind to tell the truth in front of the cops. And given the fact that we see a couple of cops using tattoos of the Punisher, it's just sick, basically. It's just terrifying. But yeah, he ends up the ruining some of the evidence that Matt had in order to defend Hector from going to jail for multiple charges. So it's getting complicated for them. So as it stands, we see that Matt has to make the decision into putting Hector on the stand and asking questions about that night. So as he does, and we see the entire episode is, I'm going to warn you right now, the entire episode is going to take place in the jury trial. So no fancy fight sequences, no anything that you wish to see, which is pure action, pure blood. It's going to be very jury-like, almost like Law and Order. I know a lot of people will probably won't like that, but at the same time, Matt is a lawyer, and he's supposed to show why he is a good lawyer and why people go to him whenever it comes to justice. And that's one of the many facets that I like about Matt Murdock, that he is a lawyer who actually defends the law, and he's actually using the law to help people and not going around as Daredevil all the time in order to get the answers and put away the bad guys. Remember, one of the things that I like about the original series is that Matt Murdock doesn't always have to rely on his Daredevil persona. He can always rely on being Matt Murdock only. One of his best skills is that he actually tells the truth. I mean, for God's sakes, how do you think he managed to beat She-Hulk on a trial? Matt is a good lawyer, and one of the best lawyers that the MCU or the Marvel Universe could ever ask for. So I like to see scenes and an entire episode dedicated to Matt being that good of a lawyer. And while he confronts Hector about being the White Tiger, something that Hector doesn't want to say because that is not his secret, we see that Matt understands why Hector is doing what he's doing. Now, obviously, that puts him in trouble with the judge as well as with Hochberg, but Matt is firm with his standards and he's firm to the core, basically saying this has to be said, this has to be shown to the public, and the jury has to see why Hector is not a murderer or a psychopath as the corrupted police officers are trying to make it out to be. So it basically becomes an entire trial, and we see people talking about their experiences with the White Tiger, how he saved lives. We see reports from officers Reyes, Wong, Grant, and especially Officer Morales. I giggle out when I saw that moment. Like, he said Officer Morales. We all know that Miles Morales is in the MCU along with his father, so that's good to know that Officer Morales is still alive and well in the MCU. I hope we can see Spider-Man and Miles becoming Spider-Man in the MCU. Although I will say, of course, we all want Miles Morales into the Spider-Verse or across the Spider-Verse. But honestly, I wish we could go back to the standards, or to go back to where Miles started out as Spider-Man, and not just make it a multiverse story. Just make it into a normal story of a guy or a kid becoming a superhero. I think that's the best thing to do. But enough about Spider-Man. In the end, Matt makes the argument that despite all these accusations of Hector murdering the cops, he makes the argument that Hector, the only thing that he's trying to do is help people as a White Tiger, that he is actually trying to be a superhero, or basically a good hero for the people. And while Hochberg is trying to make the argument that we don't need heroes in masks, and that Reyes is not, that Hector is not exactly a good guy, that he needs to be put in jail. In the end, the jury makes the decision, and it basically shows us that Hector is innocent of all charges, all 3 charges, and he's now a free man. And honestly, Speaking for me, for myself, and speaking for all my Latino American people, I'm gonna say this. I never consider myself always Latino, or at the very least, I don't shout it to people. But I've seen injustice all the time. My dad was a lawyer. He had to confront all that injustice here in Colombia. And to see Hector being clear of all charges and being shown with his family, showing that he is a good man despite all the odds against him, it really, really, really warms my heart. It really, really depicts how good of a lawyer Matt is, and how sometimes, even if it is for a moment, justice can be prevail if you apply to people's humanity and perspective. Like I never got into politics. I hate politics, and I'm not gonna make arguments about the rich and poor from different countries and all that. No, but I want to say that it's good to see Matt Murdock applying his knowledge in law and trying to save a man's life, a man who's trying to do the right thing, even though sometimes he doesn't make the best of decisions, and show us, to the people, why it's important to apply, why good deeds need to be shown, and why they matter to people. That's the important thing. So, yeah, personally, I like this episode because it shows us why it's more important to use our brains and our knowledge than our fists. Now, of course, with all that, we see that Wilson is not happy about this trial because, after all, he made an ultimatum to Matt not to be Daredevil, not to go back to his roots, go back to his old ways, just as he's trying to go back to his old ways. But we know that he's failing at that because he needs to be the kingpin, because that's all he knows. That's all he has ever done throughout his life. So he calls the niece of Ben Urich, B.B. Urich, and tries to use her in order to put the narrative that superheroes in costumes do not need to be in New York. And the episode ends, sadly, with Hector Ayala putting his costume of the White Tiger, showing his bravery, trying to save people's lives, only to get shot in the head by a man wearing a skull logo on his chest. It's basically the Punisher logo on someone's chest. Now, I know that that is not the Punisher. I know that's not Frank Castle, which we're going to see later on the season. But the fact that someone is using his skull to do horrible things, that's just horrible. And the fact that they kill Hector is sad, but at the very least, he goes out with his boots on. And honestly, Hector, White Tiger, joins with Chadwick Boseman, T'Challa, the Black Panther in the heavens. And boy, while we never saw him do superhero stuff other than to see him on cameras, it was good to see that Hector would end up his life as a superhero, even though he was shot miserably by a coward wearing the Punisher logo. And let me tell you, this is going to be something that Frank Castle is going to take notice. So, yeah. Even though the episode doesn't end happily, I'm just glad that they show that Hector was innocent, that his wife could be proud of him. And now with the death of Hector and the White Tiger, you got to figure that Matt is going to take notice, and then he's going to find out what's going on. Who did this, and why someone wearing a skull logo on his chest, showing that that person thinks he is the Punisher, will go to such lengths. Now, it's important to remember, The guys, the police officers, the corrupt police officers that were in the show were using skull tattoos with American flags in reverse or upside down. Now, it has caused some controversy on the internet, but I'm not going to address that. What I'm going to address is that someone in the police officer, or at the very least, a group of police officers who are basically corrupt and using the skull logo from Frank Castle are going to frame him just for the sake of who knows? Maybe it's Vanessa's doing, maybe is the Wilsons doing, maybe someone else's. Who knows? All I know is this, that Frank is going to take notice, and when Matt realizes of Hector's death, it's probably going to enlist the help of the Punisher in order to take down the police officers, or hell, maybe find out who else is behind all these atrocities. All I know is this, that this season is going to get intense the more we see uh, many of these deaths, and the bodies will pile up. Now, we don't know what's going on with Muse. We haven't seen Muse in this episode, so we're going to have to wait and see. Other than that, a good showcase of Matt's abilities as a lawyer, a good episode, a personal favorite. I'll say this, it's my personal favorite. I'm sure a lot of people would consider this boring because they don't care about this trial stuff. But guys, Matt Murdock is a lawyer. What do you expect him to do? Just be Daredevil 24/7? Come on. So, yeah, that's my review of the episode. It's one of my personal favorites. I'm sure my dad will probably tell me that he likes it because of the portrayal of the jury system. Please keep the comments nice and easy. Please don't make arguments about politics or anything. I don't discuss politics in this episode or in this show. I don't like them. Please be nice. So, with that being said, we now have to wait what's going to happen by the time we hit the fourth episode. So, until next time, I've been Enrique, and I'll see you soon. But before I close this out, I want to say, Señor Kamar de los Reyes, yo lo tengo en su santa gloria. Espero que pueda estar junto con todo el panteón de héroes a través de la historia. Ojalá que pueda descansar en paz y lo encomiendo a Dios. A usted y al personaje Héctor Reyes. Perdón, Héctor Ayala. El tigre blanco. Descanse en paz. Descanse en poder.